Alright everyone, this is my CPU fan, and today when I arrived with my computer, it was making this horrible whining noise. And the reason it does that is the CPU heatsink gets clogged with a lot of dust, and when that happens, the system starts to increase the speed of the fan, so that it can maintain the level of temperature that it's trying to maintain. And what happens is the computer starts to whine. Now, what I normally do when I do hear it doing that is I immediately remove the heatsink, give it a good clean, and replace it again as part of general computer maintenance. Because if your CPU is overheating, that's a bit of a problem. So, on this particular heatsink and fan system, there are 4 spring-loaded screws, and I'm going to be removing them. I'll be removing the heatsink and fan, and then what I'll do is I'll leave the CPU in its slot, just give it a good clean on top with a piece of tissue paper or something. Then what I'll do is I'll clean the CPU heatsink and clean the CPU fan and replace it, and the whining will stop and my computer will be back to good health. So this is a little general maintenance tip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video now and unscrew those 4 screws, the 4 spring-loaded screws that hold this system down. Okay. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the wire. I think it just unclips. Okay, I've unclipped that. And then I'm going to unscrew the screws. Now, you need to unscrew them basically all at the same time, so each one's going to be turned anti-clockwise, and I'm going to do about 5 turns each. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to opposite ends. So I'll be going to opposite ends, unscrewing it a little bit on each one of those until it dislodges, and then I'm going to remove it. Okay. Alright, so I've loosened all the screws. I make sure they're all completely dislodged, and then I can take the whole unit out. Okay. And we're just left with that. I'm not going to take the CPU out of the system. What I am going to do, if you look on top of it, you can see there's a bit of CPU paste there. That's going to be removed with a tissue paper. Okay. And the same thing will happen on the, if you look at the bottom of the heatsink where it was connecting to the CPU, there's also a bit of CPU paste there, which I'm going to remove as well. Right, so I give that a little bit of a wipe. Okay, and that should do it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, if you look, you can't really see it, but around the CPU area on the motherboard, there's quite a bit of dust. Okay, a proper service would involve dusting off the whole motherboard, but I'm just doing the area around the CPU because that's going to be covered by the CPU and heatsink system later. So it's a good idea to just service that area now. So I'm going to use this little brush here. This is basically a clean paintbrush. And I'm just going to brush around the edges. Alright, now that I've basically cleaned the CPU with a tissue paper and I've brushed the area around there, I don't have to worry about the motherboard. I can just work on the CPU heatsink and the CPU fan, and when that's ready I can just put it back on here. So I'm going to leave the computer for now, and we're going to move on now to the CPU heatsink and the CPU fan. Alright, so here's the units. Okay, consists of the heatsink and the CPU fan. Before I do anything, I'm going to remove the paste that's still on there, so that it doesn't get messy later. So we remove that with a bit of tissue paper. Alright, another clean piece of tissue paper to finish it off. And we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so what I've done here is you see these two clips here on this fan system. They were clipped onto the heatsink system on these ends here. I used a flat screwdriver to unclip them, and then I'll unclip both sides, and then I remove the heatsink fan system from the heatsink itself. Now if you look at the top of the heatsink, you can see all the dust that has collected there, and this is why the computer system is overheating. So it wouldn't have been wise for me to ignore that whining noise. That's always a sign that my fan is working very hard to try and keep my system cool, because the system has got automatic monitoring of the temperature, and when the CPU is getting too hot, because this whole heatsink system is not getting cooled down by the fan, then the fan increases its speed, and that's what was causing the whining. So as you can see, there's definitely a lot of dust clogging up the vents. So what I'm going to do first, you can see there's a lot of dust on the fan as well. So I'm going to use a brush. I use this brush to basically clean the fan system, right? And then once I've done the fan, I'll put that aside, and then I'll work on cleaning the heatsink. The method I use for cleaning the heatsink is slightly different to the method I use for cleaning the fan, which I'll get to later. So I'm going to be just dusting off the fan system with the paintbrush until all the dust is off it, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've been dusting off the fan using what I do is I hold the center of the fan, because it's spinning. I hold the center of the fan with my thumb like this when I'm doing the under part, and I dust off each blade independently from the bottom. Alright, and I can turn it around and hold it again from the bottom so that the blades are stable, and then do each blade from the top and just spin it around like that. And dust off all the dust around here. Okay. Okay, and when you're finally happy that it doesn't have to be shiny clean, just get all the excess dust off. You don't want to use any liquids to clean it, because what happens is the dust tends to turn into mud, and that can cause the fan to become unstable. You just want to dust it off the way I'm showing you here. Okay. So yeah, once the excess dust is off, the CPU fan itself is ready to be placed back in the computer. Alright, so I'm now going to work on the heatsink. Alright, so that's basically the CPU fan is ready now. Okay, here's the heatsink. The main collection of dust is on the top where the fan sits. And yeah, that's causing a serious issue, as you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush the dust off from the sensor outputs, moving around in a circular motion to get that dust off there. So you just dust it off like that. Okay. I'm doing this inside, but you should actually go outside and do it because it does create a lot of dust. Right. Okay, and you just brush the whole thing. That's why I took the CPU paste off prior to doing this, because if you brush it with the CPU paste on it, you just make a big mess. Alright, so you clean it like this. Alright. Now, a lot of the dust that's inside the vents is very difficult to remove even with the brush. So one of the strategies I use there is I can actually wash it in a little bit of detergent and then rinse it off with clean water, and then put it out in the sun to dry for about, it doesn't have to be too long, like 20 minutes or 10 minutes. And then that'll give it a very, very good clean, because particles of dust collect more particles of dust. So by washing this in detergent and rinsing it in a bit of clean water, I get a very, very sort of longer use, if you want to put it that way, after I've done this service. Alright, so the next step is to go and wash this in some detergent. Okay, what I've got here is a little bit of warm water with, I've got the same brush here. I'm basically going to use the brush, and the warm water's got a little bit of detergent in it. I'm going to take this system here because there's no wiring on here. It's just a piece of metal really, and I'm going to give it a good clean in the water, in the lukewarm water with the detergent, using the brush as well. I like to get all the excess dust off because dust collects dust, and I don't like to be doing this too often. I find I have to do it approximately once every 6 months or so, and if I don't do a proper job, then I find that after 3 months I've got to do it again. So I'm cleaning it now pretty well in the detergent. This maintains a healthy CPU because you've got to keep your CPU cool, and this is a CPU cooling system, and when it gets clogged with dust, you've got a problem. Alright, so give it a good clean like this. You can even leave it in there for a while to let the dust dislodge. Shake it around and then. Alright, so that's going to do the job. And then the next step is to rinse it off, obviously. Okay. So I'm going to go and get some clean water now, and then I can do the final phase of this heatsink cleaning. Okay, I've replaced the liquid here with brand new clean lukewarm water, and then I'm just going to rinse it off in there. Alright, so we've got ourselves a nice clean heatsink. Alright, so now I'm just going to leave it for about 20 minutes, let it dry out, and then I'll be back and we can carry on from there. Alright, so the heatsink has dried up, so all I have to do now is place this back on. Just make sure it lines up with that slot on the side. So you can see there, slotted it over there, and on the other side. So now the unit is clean and it's ready to go back into the PC. Okay, what I've done here is I've taken a little bit of CPU paste and put it on the end of the screwdriver here, just to give you an idea of how much you should be using. You don't want to use too much. The trick is to use quite a little bit, because you don't want to make a big mess when you put the CPU paste on your CPU and then have it sort of spreading everywhere. Okay, and I took some of the hardened CPU paste and sort of left it out of the equation, because it does tend to harden on the when it's inside the tube. The first bit comes out a little bit sort of cemented. So this is nice and soft and will spread nice and evenly when I place the heatsink on top of the CPU. Alright, so I'm going to go and place it now on top of the CPU. I don't put it on the heatsink, I put it on the CPU inside the PC first. Okay, so I'm going to show you that quickly. Okay, so I'm placing a very small amount in the middle of the CPU. I don't want too much in there. So I can take some excess away. Okay, just enough so that it can spread when I put it. Okay, normally you just want to put a little dot of it in the middle. Alright. Okay, that should be fine. Okay, so as you can see, I haven't put too much in. Alright. And I'm basically ready now to put the heatsink back on top of the CPU. And then we'll be done. Alright, you want to make sure that you orientate the heatsink so that you can plug the wires back in to the same spot where they were before. Okay, we're tightening clockwise now. I'll do about 4 on each end. I'm going to tighten each one now in an alternating way, and I'm not going to tighten them too much. You don't want to tighten them too much. Okay, so let's just do that. I'll go to the opposite end. Okay, that one's tight. That one's fine. And finally this. I don't think you can see, but anyway, I've tightened all 4 screws. They're spring-loaded screws. And the final thing I need to do is to plug in the cable. Okay, you probably can't see, it's very dark here. So I'm going to plug that cable in. Alright. Make sure it's orientated the right way. Okay, so I don't know if you can see there, but yeah, that's been plugged into its position, and the PC is ready. So I'm going to switch it on and test it. Okay, so now I'm going to switch it on. So, there you go. That's how you service your CPU heatsink and fan.